In this session, you learn how to handle Claude's most important resource. We'll make sure you begin using AI efficiently and cost effectively. Let's see what you learn. First, you learn what the context window is and why it's key for using Claude well. Knowing this will help you use AI more strategically. Next, you learn to check your context usage. This helps you watch your session's efficiency. You'll then see the difference between the /compact and /clear commands, knowing when to use each for the best results. These tools give you control over your sessions. Also, you'll learn to avoid the common kitchen sink session mistake from day one. This saves you time and effort. Finally, you'll use a one task, one context method, making sure your Claude Code sessions are reliable and cheap. You'll finish with a strong base for success. To build that strong base, we must start with the key idea. So, what is the context window? Let's look at this step by step. First, Claude works with a fixed size context window. This window holds all the info for your current session. It's the short-term memory. Think of it as your workspace, like a desk holding your prompts, Claude's answers, files read, and commands run. This workspace fills up. Each interaction takes up space, and the longer you run the session, the more cluttered it gets. This clutter affects performance. To make room, old context gets compressed or dropped, leading to mistakes and bad answers. Because it affects performance, checking your context is key. Think of it as a context health gauge with 3 zones. Let's see what each zone means. First, the green zone, 0 to 70% usage, is best. Claude has room to work, so you can interact without worrying. This is ideal. Next, the amber zone, 70 to 90%, means Claude can still work, but context is tight. Run the /compact command before your next task to free space. This keeps things smooth. Finally, the red zone, 90% or more, means context is full. Stop, commit your work, and run /clear because continuing is inefficient. Clear your workspace to reset. You learned about context zones and what to do in each. Now, let's look at /compact and /clear. Knowing the difference is key, so let's start with their purpose. The first difference is their purpose. /compact summarizes all parts of your conversation to free space, like tidying a desk. /clear wipes your conversation, starting you fresh. Next, think about how each affects your session. With /compact, your session continues, keeping your context. But /clear makes Claude forget everything, resetting you to 0. Knowing when to use each is important. Use /compact in the amber zone when you need room to continue. Use /clear in the red zone when switching tasks or when you need to reset. Now that you know /compact and /clear, it's important to know a common mistake beginners make. This can ruin your context efforts. Let's look at the first error and how to avoid it. This is the kitchen sink session, where you pile too many tasks into one long Claude Code session. Claude acts strange, gives bad answers, or undoes fixes because the context is too full. Always use one task, one context, treating each session as a focused block before clearing context. To use one task, one context well and manage your context, let's look at the steps you should follow for each Claude Code session. These habits keep things focused. Let's start with the first step. Your first step is to define one clear objective. Before you open Claude Code, ask, what do I want to do right now? Focusing improves outcomes. Next, commit your work to Git before a new Claude Code session. This gives you a rollback point, protecting your progress. With your objective and code committed, run Claude and work through the task. Use Claude Code's power to reach your goal. When Claude finishes, review the changes, maybe using git diff. If you're happy, commit the changes. Finally, if your next task is unrelated, run the /clear command. This starts you fresh, preventing context bloat and setting you up for good performance. Before a new Claude Code session, save your progress. Run git add to stage changes, then git commit to save them to your repository. This ensures you have a rollback point before opening Claude Code. Let's check context usage in our current session to show it clearly. To do this, we'll open Claude Code and select our React project session. Here you see a list of recent sessions, and we'll resume the one for our React project. We've added a character counter to the task input field, tested the limits, and interrupted a refactor. To see our context usage, we'll type /context. Watch how the available commands narrow as I type. And now to check our context, Claude is analyzing our session history to show its context usage. Here's our context usage. It's used 9% of the 200,000 token window, with system tools and messages using the most. Imagine we kept going for 2 hours without checking. To avoid the red zone, let's use /compact. Claude is summarizing the older parts of our conversation. The conversation has been compacted, freeing up context. Let's ask Claude to summarize the changes we made to see how it works. Claude is processing our request with its optimized context. Even after compacting, Claude remembers its changes, like adding the character counter. If we were happy, we'd commit these changes. Now to show resetting the conversation, we'll use the /clear command. The context has been cleared. This is like starting a new session. Even after clearing the context, your command history is still there, which helps remember past actions. Let's ask about the changes we made again. Claude is reevaluating. Since we cleared the context, Claude shows the clean working tree and our git commits, showing our project history. It says that despite the git history, no changes were made in this session because we used /clear. This shows the complete reset. To finish, remember that managing your context is key to good interactions with Claude Code. You have tools like /compact and /clear, but what if your context fills up without you noticing? Let's see how Claude Code's safety net works. First, Claude Code has automatic compaction. If your context gets too high, it compresses all the parts. This stops your session from stopping. This is reactive, not proactive. It only acts when the context is already critical. So think of it as a last resort. It's for emergencies. Trust it to catch you, but don't rely on it. Your management is better. Auto compaction can still make the model's answers worse because it's compressing under pressure. You've seen all of context management, from its nature to taking control. Let's put this knowledge into a clear summary of what you've learned. Let's start with the key idea. First, you know what the context window is, Claude's memory. You learn to see it as your desk, knowing its limits and why managing it is key. You found the 3 context health zones, green, amber, and red, giving you a model for your context stages. You now know /compact for summarizing and /clear for resetting. You know when to use each, giving you control over your interactions. You can avoid kitchen sink sessions where too much is crammed in. You know its bad effects on Claude's performance. Finally, you have a workflow for focus sessions using the one task, one context habit. This includes defining a task, committing changes, executing, reviewing, and clearing context. Today we learn how to code with Claude, setting up a strong, safe workflow. By the end, you'll be ready to tackle your first project, starting with our initial goal. First, you learn to turn a general feature idea into a focus prompt. This is key for guiding Claude and getting the exact results you want. Next, you learn to use Git to make a starting commit before coding. This gives you a safe start, letting you experiment without worry. Then you'll review all AI-generated code changes using gitdiff before accepting. This helps you keep the code quality high and understand every line Claude suggests. If things go wrong, you'll also learn to undo changes with git checkout to reset a session. This means you can always start over or fix mistakes easily. Finally, you'll use the commit prompt diff accept revert workflow every time. This will be the base for all your future Claude Code tasks, making you a confident developer. Before we open Claude Code or even think about the prompt, we commit. First, we stage all current changes in our projects. Then, we make a clear commit. This commit is your restore point. Whatever Claude does, you can come back to this point. This is crucial. Every session starts with this safety step. With your safe commit ready, your next step is defining the task for Claude. Many start with a broad instruction like add filtering to the to-do app, but this is too vague, often leading to unexpected results. Instead, be specific and focus on the outcome in your prompts. This precise prompt defines a filter bar with options like all, active, and completed, detailing how it works and looks. It even sets rules like avoiding new dependencies to guide Claude well. This detail helps Claude deliver exactly what you want, getting you the right results the first time. With our precise prompts ready, let's open Claude and give the instructions. It starts by loading your session and showing recent activity. Let's give Claude a clear brief and it will start thinking about the task, processing your requests, and looking at the project. As Claude starts, watch the tool use notifications. You'll see it's reading your components, showing it understands your projects before making changes. Claude then makes a plan based on what it knows, outlining the changes it will make. Let it do this without stopping it. Now check the changes in the diff viewer. This is your chance to look at its work and make sure it's what you expect. After checking, you can accept the changes to add Claude's work to your projects. Claude gives a short summary of the task, detailing the changes it's made to your files. This helps you quickly understand what happened in the session. To finish the session and make a new restore point, always commit your changes with a good message after accepting Claude's work. As Claude works, remember it might stop to ask for details, which is good. It shows Claude is thinking hard about your prompt, making sure it gives you what you need. Look at the question Claude might ask here. Here, Claude asks you, should the filter state persist if the page reloads, or is in memory fine? Claude wants your input, showing it's thinking about details and wants to meet your needs. This is a key moment to guide it. Your answer should be short and clear, like in memory is fine. This gives Claude the info it needs to move forward without confusion. By answering clearly, you will help Claude do your task well. Before moving on, check every change Claude made. Running git diff shows what lines were added and what lines were removed, letting you inspect it carefully. As you look through the diff, you can see Claude changed app.jsx to add the filter state and made a new filter bar component. This helps you confirm that all changes match your expectations and the prompts you gave. You can type git diff in a separate terminal outside Claude command line so that it displays changes in color. After carefully checking the diff, you have to decide whether to use the work or start over. Let's see what to do in each case. First, if every change looks right and matches your prompt, you can accept Claude's work. But if you see anything wrong or confusing, you should reject the changes. This check is a key part of the process. To accept the work, you first stage the changes. You can do this with git add, which tells Git to include all the changes in the next snapshots of your project. To reject the work, you can use git checkout to instantly undo all the changes Claude made. Once staged, you save the good work by committing it with a clear message. This makes a new restore point in your project's history that includes Claude's work. The revert command takes you back to your last commit, as if the session never happened. This gives you a fresh start to change your prompts and try again without cleaning up. Once the good work is staged and you save it by making a new commit with a clear message, this finishes Claude's work, making a new restore point in your project's history that includes all the accepted changes. Now that you know how to decide after reviewing your diff, you're ready to use this process every time. This is the Claude Code workflow, which you'll use for every session. Let's look at the first step. The first step, commit, is your safety net. Before you even start with Claude, you'll make a restore point with Git. This makes sure that you can always go back to a good state. Next, you'll focus on the prompt, make specific prompts, including any rules about files or dependencies. This helps Claude give you accurate results. The third step is diff. You'll check every change Claude suggests using git diff. This makes sure you understand and agree with every change before adding it to your project. Finally, we have accept or revert the decision you just learned. If the changes are good, you commit them. If anything is wrong, you use git checkout to go back to a clean state, ready to change your prompts and try again. Let's test our app. To get ready for filtering, let's mark one task as complete. Notice how checking the box crosses out the task, showing it's done. Now click the active filter to show only the tasks that are still in progress. You'll see the completed task is hidden. Next, switch to the completed filter. This shows only the tasks you finished, showing how filtering works. Finally, click All to see every task again. Notice how the Selected Filter button is highlighted as we said in the prompt. You just finished your first Claude Code task, taking a vague idea and making it real in your app. Now, let's review what you learned and make sure you're ready for your future projects. Let's start by looking at the base you set up. First, you made sure your project had a strong Git base. You started a repository and made that important commit before asking Claude for code, giving you a safety net for every session. Next, you learn to sharpen prompts, turning a general idea into a clear, focused prompt. This, along with adding rules, helps Claude give you the results you want. Then you carefully checked Claude's work with code review using gitdiff. You made sure to look at every AI-generated change before even thinking about accepting it. You also learned to reverse cleanly, knowing how to use git checkout to undo any unwanted changes. This makes sure no damage is done and lets you try things without fear. And finally, you set up the Git loop. This commit, prompt, diff, accept, or revert workflow will now be your process for every coding session. Welcome to the anatomy of a great prompt. By the end of this lesson, you'll gain practical skills that will transform how you interact with AI. Let's start by looking at the first key skill you'll develop. First, you'll confidently construct powerful prompts using the 4 core ingredients: context, task, constraints, and output format. Mastering these building blocks will make your prompts incredibly effective. Next, you'll understand why many beginner prompts often fall short and, more importantly, how to easily fix them with specific targeted additions. These insights will save you a lot of trial and error. Then you'll learn a super useful trick: how to use your existing files as live examples for Claude, directly referencing them with the handy art syntax. This feature will streamline your workflow like never before. Furthermore, you'll develop the crucial habit of writing negative constraints, which are excellent for clearly guiding Claude's behavior and refining its output. This approach helps prevent common AI pitfalls. Finally, you'll know how to challenge Claude's outputs effectively, ensuring you consistently achieve more elegant, verified, and superior results. You're going to build some truly effective prompts and elevate your AI interactions. And at the heart of every successful interaction with Claude lies a well-crafted prompt, carefully constructed from 4 essential ingredients. These powerful elements give you the ability to guide Claude precisely towards the outcome you desire. Let's start by looking at the first crucial element: context. This is everything Claude needs to understand about the current situation before it can even begin to act. Think about the project state, any relevant file details, or existing user flows. You're essentially setting the scene for Claude. Once Claude understands the context, you define the task. This is what you actually want Claude to achieve, always described as a clear outcome. Remember, focus on the desired result you're aiming for, not the step-by-step instructions on how to get there. Next, you'll establish the constraints. These are the crucial rules and boundaries that Claude must operate within while completing its task. This means telling Claude what it absolutely can't use, what areas it must not touch, or any elements it simply cannot break. Finally, you specify the output format. This dictates exactly how you want Claude to deliver its result to you. Do you need a single function, a complete component, an explanation before any code, or perhaps just a detailed plan? Let's look at a common pitfall. You might instinctively write a weak prompt like add a due date to tasks. This brevity leaves Claude with too many unknowns, forcing it to make guesses that often don't align with your project specifics. You'll quickly find yourself needing to refine its output if you don't provide proper guidance. For the same goal, see how this strong prompt utilizes every ingredient. You provide essential context about the app, clearly define the task, specify constraints like using existing libraries, and dictate the precise output format. This level of detail eliminates guesswork, ensuring Claude delivers exactly what you need on the first try. That strong prompt was effective because it included all 4 ingredients, but of those 4, context is the one people leave out most often. So why is this critical ingredient so frequently skipped? Let's explore the common pitfalls together. The main reason comes down to implicit assumptions. You might think that's because you've been working in the same session, Claude automatically understands your project state and its patterns, but that's a risky assumption to make. These assumptions cause crucial details to go missing from your prompts. When a task touches multiple components or relies on established patterns, you have to explicitly tell Claude where it is so it can act correctly and stay aligned with your codebase. To fix this, adopt the new developer rule as a default habit. Before you write your task, simply ask yourself, what would a brand new developer need to know to get this right? The answer to that question is the exact context you need to provide. Let's start by instructing Claude to create a new component, task note, which will display a read-only note. Critically, you reference task_item.jsx and task_item.module.css directly with the @ symbol, showing Claude the exact structural and styling patterns to follow. Claude immediately begins its work, reading the actual code from the referenced task item files. This step ensures it fully understands the existing conventions before generating any new code. Now Claude proposes the new task node.jsx file, generating a functional component that imports its own CSS module, and it's structured to receive a node prop, just like your task item example. Following the same pattern, Claude then presents tasknodes.module.css with styling rules for .note and .text classes. It automatically applies display properties, spacing, and colors consistent with your existing task item components. Finally, Claude confirms the creation of both files and explains how it adheres to the specific conventions from naming exports and handling props to mirroring CSS module imports and class names. This demonstrates how a single file reference provides more detailed guidance than several paragraphs of instructions. We've just seen how to show Claude what to do using explicit examples. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect of guiding Claude, telling it what not to do. This is where negative constraints come in, acting as essential guardrails to keep Claude on the right path. Let's start by looking at why these are so important. As you can see, Claude is trained on vast amounts of code, and without specific guidance, it will often default to the most common patterns it has seen. This means if you don't explicitly tell it otherwise, its default behavior might not align with your project's unique structure or needs. You need to proactively override these defaults to get truly tailored results. To prevent these misalignments, you must explicitly state what Claude absolutely must not do. Think of actions like installing new libraries, modifying existing schemas, or touching sensitive files. These are perfect candidates for negative constraints. This creates a clear fence around Claude's actions, keeping it within safe boundaries. The key is to make writing these guardrails a default habit for yourself. Before submitting any prompts, take a moment to consider the most likely and desired outcomes and explicitly ban them. By thinking preemptively, you can stop a whole class of potential bugs and issues before they even have a chance to happen. Now that you've learned to proactively prevent issues with negative constraints, let's talk about how to push Claude even further. Getting Claude to produce truly great code often means challenging its initial output, rather than just accepting the first draft. Let's start with how you can verify its work. A powerful technique is the verification challenge. You can ask Claude to prove to me this works, walk me through exactly what happens when a user adds a task with a due date and then reloads the page. This isn't just asking for an explanation, it forces Claude to trace the logic end to end, helping you ensure the proposed solution is robust and functional. Once functionality is verified, you can aim for elegance with a quality challenge. Try asking, knowing everything you know now, is this the most elegant solution? If not, show me what you'd do differently. You'll find that Claude frequently offers a cleaner, more refined solution when directly prompted to optimize its own work. Finally, if Claude's initial approach is fundamentally flawed, don't hesitate to use a reset challenge. Tell it, scrap what you just wrote, implement this from scratch using a better approach, explain what was wrong with the first version before you start. This powerful command lets you restart with a fresh perspective and guides Claude to completely rethink its solution. You've just run through a powerful mental checklist to refine your prompts and understand how to challenge Claude effectively. Now let's take a moment to consolidate everything we've covered and review the core strategies that will make you a master prompts engineer. We'll start by revisiting those fundamental ingredients. As you now know, every truly effective prompt is built on a foundation of four core ingredients: context, task, constraints, and output format. By ensuring you cover each of these with clarity and precision, you're setting Claude up for success every time. We also explored why many beginner prompts often fall short. It typically comes down to a lack of critical context, missing constraints, or failing to specify a clear output format, which then leads to those undesired or unexpected results. You've learned the incredibly powerful technique of using at references. By pointing Claude directly to existing files and code examples within your projects, you enable it to intelligently mirror patterns and adapt its output perfectly to your established codebase. And remember, a key habit to cultivate is the use of negative constraints. By explicitly telling Claude what it must not do, you effectively override its default behaviors and prevent a whole host of common mistakes and unwanted outcomes. Finally, you're now equipped to challenge Claude's output to get the absolute best results. Whether you're using verification, quality, or even reset challenges, you can consistently push Claude to deliver more robust, elegant, and thoroughly checked resolutions.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, you'll love Zenva Academy. 300 courses where you learn AI by building real apps. Links in the description.